Blockchain and government. We've heard a lot of potential use cases for blockchain over the last couple of days. I'm really pleased to be here and presenting a highly eminent panel of people to talk to you about why blockchain matters for government. Now, we know that large-scale adoption is a long way away, but governments are facing a whole lot of challenges which they're going to need to cope with and they need to be ready for, and many of them are already with us today. Blockchain offers government fast, secure, efficient, transparent means of being able to deploy government services and communicate with their populations. This is the panacea. This is what we're going for. This is possibly achieved in Estonia and nowhere else. I know Dubai are aspiring for it. Governments are looking at how they can do this. And there's a whole range of use cases that potentially governments can deploy. But you've already heard that there are a lot of adoptions to large-scale use of blockchain and there are barriers to its deployment. So I'm really happy to be here with this panel who are going to share with us their experiences, why they're interested in blockchain and some of the issues that they see in getting large-scale adoption of blockchain by government. So thank you. I'll ask each of the panel members to introduce themselves and to tell you about why they're interested in blockchain, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Good afternoon, my name is Willem-Jan Bruin from the Bitfury Group. Happy to be here. We are already more than 7 years in the blockchain business. Initially started with our mining activities. We are one of the largest miners outside of China. We employ around about 400 people, of which more than half of that amount of people are specialized in designing, developing blockchain-based solutions. We have running, especially for the government of Georgia, a land entitlement project started almost 2 years ago, where the government approaches by asking help how to improve their processes on land entitlement or titling, because at the moment, or before that, it took them 3 to 4 days to process a land title for their clients, for the citizens. And there was still a high level of trustworthiness or low level of trustworthiness on that transaction. So we got engaged. At the moment, we run around about 4 million of those land entitlements on the platform. Is a permissioned private platform, but we included anchoring to the Bitcoin network in order to provide proof of that transaction to the citizens so they can validate whether that transaction took place and what is recorded on the platform. That platform is running successfully. We have designed it based on a high performance network, processing roundabout or able to process around about 3,000 transactions by the second, and a clearance time of around about 2.5 seconds for any transaction. The anchoring is taking a little bit longer. That's the typical anchoring on the Bitcoin platform. We can do on other networks as well. But on the Bitcoin, you are faced with 10 minutes. That project is underway. We do a couple of other projects with central governments, where it is key, and that's one of the lessons learned, is that you have your stakeholder analysis very well done, because moving from a POC type of engagement, going into a live environment will require not only the technical people being engaged, but many, many more. But I think we will touch that subject later on.
Great, thanks very much. So let's move on to Ashley.
Thank you, and good afternoon. My name is Ashley Fox. I'm the MEP for the southwest of England and Gibraltar. And for my sins, I also lead the British Conservatives in the European Parliament. So why my interest in blockchain? Well, it means I don't have to talk about Brexit. But I've been a shadow rapporteur on the Economic and Monetary Affairs Committee on virtual currencies, on fintech, and I'm on the All-Party Innovation Group. And of course, my interest in Gibraltar gives me a particular reason for being here. So thank you for having me on the panel.
No, thank you very much. We look forward to hearing more from you. Antonas.
Thank you very much, Leon. Liam. It's very nice to be here, first of all. Thank you very much for the invitation. I guess I'm a very passionate blockchain person. Even before I was elected a member, being as a member of European Parliament, I made investments in the blockchain area, in cryptocurrencies. So I was an early believer and have probably been rewarded slightly over the last year by this fantastic market. So obviously I'm excited, and I know how passionate people are about blockchain, which is a lot different than just cryptocurrencies, right? So there's a lot of hype and emotion, but it's not just about that. It's about the technology, and it's about what can happen, and that's what the European Union, I guess, is also very much pro, not anti like China. We're pro, and I can see that it's really happening, and it's open. There's going to be a EU observatory as well set up for blockchain, which is going to be very important. There's lots of sandbox, lots of governments allowing crypto exchanges to trade. We just saw Luxembourg approve another one this week, Bitflyer. So you can see that momentum in Europe is very different than China, right? It's a very open environment, and I think it's a huge opportunity for Europe. So that's what I stand for, to make Europe great, I guess.
Thank you very
Wow.
much. So that's crypto exchanges, sandboxes, governments are looking at this stuff. But let me ask each of you, what do you think are going to be the early use cases for government? Why do you think governments are going to go for this technology? So maybe each of you can pick a favourite use case that you think governments are going to move on early. So since you're passionate, let's start with you.
Okay, look, there's so much I could probably talk about for hours and hours, and I've been involved in so many different projects. But the main one, I think, is the notarization of documents. I think a very, very simple one is like, we probably won't need notaries in the future. Everything can be on a blockchain. When you purchase your title, whenever you've had a service done, that's important. Whenever you've been to the doctor, if you have to show your insurance companies. So proof that you've done something, and proof that someone's done something. So you have, and that's very simple terms, right? So the notarization of your land titles, and whatever, and where government has to have some control to protect people from losing their assets. So these assets will be eventually on the blockchain, and countries will deliver that.
Thank you. So registries, proof, time stamping, really important aspects. So how about you? What do you think?
Now, I'd go along with that. Also, access to criminal records. In the United Kingdom, we check an awful lot of people to work with vulnerable individuals, whether they're children or the elderly, and you have to send away to an agency that then does a check. Now, the idea that you might have all criminal records on a blockchain, individuals would know what the state held on them and could then grant access to a school or a nursing home or somewhere, and that whole process would be speeded up enormously, and that would grant great reassurance to citizens and to future employers.
Great, thanks. WJ?
Yeah, our example is more related to the supply chain, although some of your examples are also in the supply chain, building trust, auditability and transparency of the, let's say, the data you share and the validity of the data. We looked into a couple of use cases in that particular application. I think that the supply chain itself, by sharing data of citizens, data of records, data of entitlements, are one of the key. But you need to, and that's the challenge we have, to get access to the data, because that's normally owned by the government. And I see quite a bit of requests from commercial organizations who want to use that data, what's now being captured or held and owned by the government, want to use that and combine it with their services. So, and that's a challenge which is not yet being overcome, and we should work on that, because then I think if we can combine or blend the commercial initiatives with government data, but still keeping and following the rule on GDPR and so on, and other regulations. But if we are able to combine the commercial initiatives with government data, we can create something very nice. And as well an acceleration in the adoption of blockchain in itself.
Thank you. And on the other side of the coin, I'd just like to comment on the democratisation. So you're talking about the capacity for governments to be far more responsive to their citizens. There's some blockchain voting platforms now. In fact, in Australia, there's a blockchain party called the Flux Party that works on a blockchain voting system. And just to quote you a couple of numbers, in Australia, it costs about $2,500 for everyone to vote in a state election for each vote. On the Horizon State platform, it costs 50 cents. So it will allow a much more responsive dialogue between governments and citizens. But there's going to be barriers, there's going to be constraints. Governments are already worried about cybersecurity, dark web compliance regulation. So let's just talk through the panel. What do you think are going to be some of the challenges to be overcome with seeing wide-scale adoption of blockchain and governments? So perhaps WJ?
Yeah, this is an interesting question. And I can be very blunt on that one. We have been knocking on the door of some governments very hard at the right level. But you have to go through a very lengthy process, although they see the benefits of the technology. This is not technology conversation. This is about changing a system, changing a way of working, and nobody wants to burn. Basically, that's our experience. Nobody wants to burn their fingers just for technology change. And they don't speak about cost, right? Although our solution is very nice, it looks very nice, we can help them, we can support them, but the process in a country to go through that change, what is the impact? And that is a very lengthy process. So I think maybe some smaller initiatives has to start, that blockchain has been seen as a really good technology to resolve a couple of issues within the government itself. Then maybe in the later stage, this particular application would be more of an interest. But so far, it has been a tough play.
I think it is a tough play, and I must say this is one of the reasons why we think that blockchain will go fastest in emerging markets, because they have bigger problems and less barriers to adoption. But what do you think?
Well, let's face it, the public sector is not great at rolling out new technological innovations. Most IT government projects are beyond time and they cost a fortune. And you'll find that most politicians are really very nervous of using new technology, of introducing new schemes, because they're fearful of what will happen when it goes wrong. So I think government will be quite slow to introduce blockchain technology, even though it has great potential. I think so far as citizens are concerned, they're going to be concerned about their own privacy and the security of the system. So I actually agree with the point you made. We need a pilot scheme in one small area that can be demonstrated to be successful. And I think from a personal point of view, we are a very long way from having blockchain elections. I rather like the bits of paper and the pencil.
I think the main challenges now is that probably the overhype and the risks associated. So when the mums and dads came in, unfortunately, it's towards the end of the cycle that was extremely volatile, but it was going up, right? And Bitcoin hit to 20,000 and everything was booming. And so a lot of mums and dads came in at that time, and now we've seen things go down in half. We could have some pain, but if the market stays weak, that there'll be some definite challenges where people start complaining about losing money, and then all the action, all the government action will come when there's losses and there's blood on the floor, right? That's what happens, and then the action can be extreme, and it's, you know, on balance of probabilities, it's probably likely that will happen. It's just a matter of when, because people do not understand what they're buying. You know, I see people analyzing Ripple, but they're not buying Ripple Corporation, right? They're not buying the company. They're not getting the equity. They're trading an instrument that's there, that there could be another one and another one later released. So there needs to be a lot of education and understanding, because all the analytics, all the top managers are analyzing how good technology is, but they're not. There's no financials, right? There's no forecast. There's no opportunity to have any financials. So there is some issues there, and probably the biggest solution will be is to have, and for Europe, an opportunity here to catch up to America, because America has such a great equity markets and so much money and VCs and so on. America dominates. So for us, a decentralized, tokenized securities, so where tokens become securities, but they're decentralized and on a blockchain, this is the future. This is the future, and this is a huge opportunity for Europe to move forward and execute.
And look, I think some of the Eastern European countries have really been the fastest movers in this space, Georgia, Estonia and others. So we're seeing a lot of movement.
And Lithuania.
Lithuania, call out
Lithuania is the best.
Yes, yes.
Let's not miss that. Okay, Ashley, well, Gibraltar's been a bit of a first mover in this space, so just give us a couple of reflections that you can share for other governments to think about in approaching this.
Well, I think the key to Gibraltar's success is focusing on quality. The fact that they've got these 9 broad principles, the most important of which I think is behaving with honesty and integrity. And that's the same approach they've adopted to their gaming industry. For every 10 applications they get, they turn down 9 of them. And I expect Gibraltar to adopt the same approach with blockchain applications. And if you get a Gibraltar license, that's a sign that you're a serious player. And if you don't behave yourself, that license will be taken away, and then that's an example to the world, and you probably won't do much business again. So I think Gibraltar's a pioneer. They've drawn up a principle-based approach, which is entirely right. It's just impossible for politicians to draft a law that's going to deal with every eventuality in the future. And I think were we to try, we would fail. So I think the principle-based approach is entirely right. And I think you look at the success of the gaming industry in Gibraltar and the international reputation it has, I think we will see that replicated for blockchain technology.
Okay, thanks very much. So the other 2 members, handy hints for governments to think about with adoption of blockchain technology, then we'll throw it open to the floor.
Handy hints. So, I'm a proponent of, at the moment, a sandbox environment, no regulation, observe and monitor, because any regulation will make it hard. As we can see, I'm excited that Luxembourg is also, we didn't mention Luxembourg, that it has licensed Bitflyer to convert fiat to crypto, which is important. A few of these cases have happened in Lithuania as well. And so that's important, and I think we need more and more of these countries independently, their central banks to allow crypto to fiat conversion and vice versa. So there's a nice, efficient market and liquid market. So that's happening in Europe. Europe is really leading that now in a very significant way. So we're getting Japanese companies setting up here. We're probably going to have lots of Chinese expertise coming from China to Europe for this, for blockchain. And this is where we have to let people in and be open arms and give leeway and allow them to develop and not interfere. Not interfere, advise, because any regulation will make it very difficult in this tremendous growth that we're having.
Yeah, I think that it will be very helpful if the governments and the regulators will give some direction, at least share their opinion, and how the industry can interact with them. Because I think the industry, if you do your investments or decide where to locate yourself and get your employees joining your company, you're looking to a couple of factors, and the predictability of your government is very helpful. I see in my region, I see some very good initiatives where the government is really active in running pilots, doing all kinds of meetups, technical deep dives, hackathons, which are key ingredients for the government to understand and learn what it is and what it not is. So just by doing it, that gives a lot of, or tremendous amount of understanding what it is and what you can do with it, and educate your organization as a government itself. By doing short track POC type of engagements. But that helps you also as a government to and a regulator to give an opinion, because leaving it in the middle is giving a sign in itself. So I think if you embrace technology, if you see that this technology can really be beneficial for particular applications, you can also say, okay, and write about it and say, okay, guys, we endorse this technology, we endorse these platforms, and then you also can give a caveat around, okay, we're still investigating A, B, C, and D. Whether it will be security, yes or no. But I think the regulators are all struggling, speaking general, what to say, because if one says something before anybody else says something, they are the first. So what we all try to avoid is that a country will just declare particular cryptocurrencies as security, just out of the blue. So you want to have a dialogue, industry and government, and we need to create a platform that allows us to do that.
So just quick, I
keep-
think
and
I've
keep
got
the
2
bad guys
minutes
out.
left. I'm trying to get a question from the floor, so quickly, I've got 2 minutes for a question. One down here. One question, that's it. You're the lucky last. And you're not an L country in Eastern Europe.
No, I'm definitely not from Eastern Europe. So my question is for the members of the European Parliament. If you could give us like some very quick guide for us as startups who are based here in London, how do we get in touch? Like, what's the best way for us to understand, to navigate this ecosystem of the European Union, which seems like very problematic, like a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of ideas, it's not well connected, it's a lot of politicians. So if you could just give us like a practical set of recommendations, like a checklist for actions, like what do we need to do to understand, to get it better,
Very
to get
succinct
some
question,
funding,
then
get
he can
ideas.
answer you. We're going to get thrown off the stage. Okay, quick
Yeah,
answer.
so we're going to put those guys in
European
here. Thank you.
Parliament.
Well, first of all, you won't be getting any funding. You know, this should be led by private enterprise, so don't expect a government handout. And secondly, I don't want to see the European Union bringing out vast numbers of regulations. Keep them away from that. I want to see codes of conduct, statements of principles, as we see in Gibraltar, a simple license. You're either abiding by those principles, integrity and honesty being the most important. If you do that, you keep your license.
Okay, so I think I have to really thank the panel. It's been a fascinating conversation, and thank the audience. And I'm sorry we didn't have time for questions, but there's a lot more to think about. Thank you.